All right. What's good, everybody? Take Hazy back here. We're gonna try to get caught up here with the March top 10 real quick. NBA playoffs are starting this weekend as well. WrestleMania weekend's going on. I got the March Hitchcock show going on in the background, so hopefully it's not too loud and I don't get my video flagged. I think I'm good. I'm still. This is only the second time I've done the live stream on IBS or OBS. So I wanted to make sure it's working. Looks like it is. Sweet. Okay. Good deal. All right. So let's try to run through this fast. Uh, I got 10 matches, one honorable mention. Um, my grading's getting harsher, or I'm just not enjoying wrestling quite as much. So another month where I don't have 10 4-star matches. But we'll go through it. I think I watched pretty much everything on March. I didn't get around to the New Japan Cup final. So Callum Newman, Yuya Uemura's not on here. For that reason, it probably would have been otherwise. Starting off, our honorable mention is Chihiro Hashimoto taking on Manami from the 327 Sendai Girls show. I give this a 75 overall, which is the highest 3.5 you can give. And it's probably better than that, but every time I tried to watch it, I just was getting distracted, watching it too late, falling asleep. Um, but I thought it was very fun. I enjoy Hashimoto. I've made it a goal to watch a lot more of her this year. So I'm getting very familiar with her shtick, which I think is taken away from um, my overall enjoyment. It's kind of this story of every time you watch a bunch of wrestlers a bunch of times that you get used to what they do. This was my first time seeing Manami. I thought she was fine. I didn't really think she stood out all that much. But good stuff. These main events I feel like always deliver. Coming in at number 10, you have the Cinderella Tournament semi-final from Stardom. Hanan taking on Rina. This was from 315. I like Rina. I really only check out her recommended matches, so I see her here and there. I think similar Hanan. I don't believe this is the first time I saw her. I thought this match was really good. It went a little long for my liking, so my attention span was kind of coming and going with it. Um, but I thought they really delivered. You didn't get too much heel stick in this. I think you did get a little bit, but this was really good. I enjoyed both these girls' work. I enjoy pretty much everything I see of Stardom. I need to start making a point of watching more of it. I've never really watched a full Stardom show, so maybe that'll be the plan going forward here. I give this a 76, which is the lowest 3 3/4. So just edging out the Hashimoto match that was the honorable mention. Coming in at number 9 is Mascara Dorada taking on Utani from CMLL. This was on the 31st, so just made the cutoff. This is the first of two matches. I gave a 78 overall, about a middle of the road 3 3/4. This is my first time seeing Utani. Thought he showed out really well. He has that pretty decent size. Obviously, luchadors aren't the biggest guys in the world. Um, but as I've gotten more familiar with Puro and Joshi and seeing those guys come over to North America, they usually kind of pale in comparison, height and stature wise. Utani, I think, is only wrestling in Mexico, so it's not like I'm familiar with him from Japan. He came over, challenged Dorada for the belt. Thought he showed out really well. Blended really well with lucha style, even though he wasn't necessarily wrestling a lucha style. Dorada, I feel like, always just looks better in CMLL than he looks in AEW or elsewhere. So you kind of get the best of him out of there. I already lost count of where I am. I believe this is 8. Yep, number 8. You have the first of the New Japan Cup semifinals. Yuya Uemura taking on Oleg Boltin. I thought this was fun. Um, you kind of got the right results out of New Japan Cup. That was the talk coming out of this. I know this is late. Everyone's kind of covered this at this point. But your final four were the four young guys you're looking to build along with Suji as the champion at the time. Bolton, I feel like, is my favorite of the four. I don't love everything about his game. I think he lacks like a really dynamic finisher. But I feel like he has the most presence. And I feel like his fundamentals and his like small exchanges building up to the climactic moments, I'm the biggest fan of. Uemura, he kind of comes and goes with me. He's very solid. But I feel like it's hard to really get over the top with him. So even when he's having great performances like this, I feel like he kind of has like a 3 and 3/4, 4-star ceiling. Um, Obviously, his tags with Shota, you get more guys in there. You kind of get less Uemura, which helps a higher potential. But I feel like both these guys really delivered in the singles. Everything I've read and heard about the finals, sounds like Uemura delivered as well. And I think some I've seen some people kind of shit post and comparing to Sonata. I don't think he's quite that boring, but I do think he does have a little Sonata-ism in him that um, the charisma doesn't quite come through. That's the missing part with him. Coming in at number 7, you had the This Is Dragon Gate three-way trios match from the 3-1 show in Osaka. Paradox taking on Love and Peace, taking on Gajidokura. Uh, Dragon Gate's had a rough 2 months or so here. This was one of the lone bright spots. I thought March was pretty empty. There is a second match coming up from March. February wasn't much better. I think they're turning the corner in April, but April's a weird month with them doing the U.S. tour with Kikta in the Champion Carnival. But they've built some intrigue for Golden Coliseum. This match didn't really have any storyline stakes. I think it was just kind of a get back on track. We need a main event for the show. And it did lay the groundwork for Suzumu and Kagetora taking on Jackie Rita at Golden Coliseum. And this is just kind of, your classic Dragon Gate. Everyone, it's WrestleMania weekend right now. So everyone's talking about the Dragon Gate 6-man. And you kind of just get a version of that, modern day version. I think Dragon Kid was in those ROH ones because he's been around forever. Suzumu too, but I don't think he was in that match. So you get the younger guys. Jackie Rita wasn't in this match now that I'm looking at the graphic. But Kamea took the pin from Kagetora to set up that tag feud nonetheless. and this is really good. This is kind of what the best of Dragon Gate has to offer. So this is obviously what I enjoy most from Dragon Gate. I give this a 79. Not quite 4 stars, but encroaching on it. In their last 3 3/4, I said 79, right? Yeah, so this is 3 3/4. I'm confusing myself with my own scoring system. Last 3 3/4 was the Tokyo Joshi Pro match from Dallas, I believe. I believe it's in Texas, if not Dallas. Between Mio Yamashita and Shoko Nakajima. I'm a big fan of Yamashita. I think I teeter between her and Mio Watanabe, who my favorite in Tej is. I think they're clearly the two aces, the two standouts of the division. Nakajima gets praise from people that like Tokyo Joshi Pro. People that aren't as fond of Joshi don't really care for her. I'm somewhere in the middle. I kind of just thought she was fine in this match. And I've seen enough Yamashita now where, you kind of need that opponent that's on her level to get it up that upper echelon. So just 1 point shy of a 4-star match here for me. But this was really good. This was probably their match of their U.S. tour so far, or at least in March. They've been in the U.S. here for April. I haven't caught too much of that. The Vegas Tokyo Joshi Pro show just happened today. But I didn't like anything on that show as much as I liked this match. Coming in at number 5 is our first 4-star match, 81 overall. Jamie Hayter and Yamashita here again from Eve on 3/6. This was the day before their big show where they had all the title matches and everything. I thought this was better than anything on that show. It probably was the 2 best workers they had between those shows altogether. I think there's a much higher ceiling between these two. But with Hayter being an AEW wrestler, even on a big show that's showcasing in her home country, trying to put women's wrestling on the map, you always just have like that little bit of holding back. Especially she was scheduled for the Dynasty pay-per-view about a month after this. So you don't want to go like 110%. I feel like that really held this match back from being even greater than it was. I still thought it was great. 4 stars overall, 81 out of 100. Hard hitting, lariats versus kicks. That kind of classic story in wrestling. Very fun, very hard hitting. this is a lot of what the best women's wrestling has to offer in modern day. Coming in at number 4 was the Open the Brave Gate Championship match between Roya Tanaka and Jason Lee. I liked this a lot. I give this 81 as well. Um, there is a lot of heel shtick with Gaja Dokura. That's kind of the direction they've taken that heel group. It doesn't bother me as much in Dragon Gate as it does in other companies. But I think, especially people that are watching multiple companies all at once, you have that heel group in every company, so it really wears thin. Especially because these are two of the great workers in Dragon Gate, so you kind of wanted to see them have a shtick-free match. And you did have a lot of shtick, but I didn't really feel like it took away from the momentum of the match. This was Tanaka's 9th defense. He's quickly encroaching on Pac's all-time defense record. So I thought the heel tactics and trying to cheat him out of that streak was really effective emotionally. And they still had a great match overall. Coming in at number 3 is the second New Japan Cup semifinal match between Shota Umino and Caleb Newman. It's kind of crazy how far Umino's come in a year or so. I thought he was nearly unwatchable when he was headlining Wrestle Kingdom. But I think he might be my favorite guy in New Japan right now, especially when he's clicking. Newman's very young, very talented. He doesn't quite get all the way with me, but Umino is, especially in the tag matches, like against Knockout Bros. But I think he really shined here in a singles match where, he didn't have the cover of other people here. Very hard hitting, stiff. I think someone got busted open hard way. And I think they told a really effective story. I'm blanking on the details. I didn't take any notes. I went 82 overall on this, so just slightly smidge better than the last 2 matches. 4 stars. Very fun stuff. I think I would, based on being higher on Umino than I am on Uemura and Newman, I would suspect I would like this more than the Newman Uemura match. But like I said, I hadn't seen that one. So this was my favorite match from New Japan of the month. Coming in at number 2 is our first Spark Rust match. That's a bit of a teaser for what's coming in at number 1 as well. This is from Tokyo Joshi Pro. Sari and Takumi Inori taking on Yamashita here for the 3rd time, and Arizu Eno. This is my first time seeing Eno, I'm pretty sure. I didn't recognize her. I really like this Spark Rush team. I feel like it mixes up the formula of a Sari match, but you still get all the greatness of it. So you just had, you had Yamashita and Iorai Iroha trading kicks. You had Sari with her stiff strikes, headbutts, all that stuff, and Endo keeping up with them as well. I went 84 on this. Just not quite 4 1/4. But very good nonetheless. Very fun. These top 2 matches, I feel like I say this every video, but my 2 favorite matches are the 2 matches I would recommend the most. But that's definitely the case here. I think of everything on March, these 2 Spark Rush matches are by far my favorite. Coming in at number 1 is kind of this all-star tag here. You had Spark Rush again here. Sari and Takumi Iroha. I don't know why I keep getting tripped up on that name. Taking on Suri and Hashimoto. Sari arguably had the feud of the year last year, so getting to revisit that here again without dipping too much into redoing it for a 4th time, I thought was really nice. And mixing in Hashimoto, who Sari had a great match against last year as well. And Iroha, I thought was awesome. This match went very long. But I didn't feel like it lulled like a lot of longer matches do. I'm not the biggest fan of long matches. I do think you kind of just, especially when you've watched wrestling for 2 decades like I have, you kind of feel the lulls, you kind of feel the break spots in it. Having a tag match hides a lot of that stuff. But Sari, I feel like always brings it for her shows. So I didn't feel like this match ever really dipped. You definitely had higher peaks and lower valleys. But the action was stiff and combative throughout. So for a match that nearly went 30 minutes, They were just beating the tar out of each other the whole time. I went 88 overall on this, or 86 overall, four and a quarter. Um, by far the best match in March for me. All right, I meant to check how long I was on, and I forgot to do that. Looks like 15 minutes. All right, so we're not going to preview Golden Coliseum. We might do that in a different video. Main thing I wanted to get to is it's NBA playoffs week here. We're through the first two rounds of the play-in. So Portland beat Phoenix to take on San Antonio as the 7th seed, and Philly beat Orlando to be the 7th seed, taking on Boston. Charlotte squeaked by Miami in probably the most fun match so far of the play-in. So they're facing Orlando tomorrow for the 8th seed. Two teams on very different ends of the spectrum here. Orlando is kind of openly revolting against their coach, and Charlotte's kind of one of the feel-good teams. So I'm pretty confident Charlotte's going to win that and be the 8th seed, take on the Pistons. Steph Curry came back, almost single-handedly beat the Clippers. It seemed like I missed that show at I was at Dynamite last night when these Wednesday games were going on. So the Warriors will take on the Suns. I would expect the Suns to win. Steph Curry probably can reach the highest level still, even with Devin Booker on the other team, but the Suns just have more talent. The Warriors just really don't have much talent outside of Steph. Everyone's a little too old. Jimmy Butler's hurt. But I wouldn't be shocked if Steph Curry did it again. Either way, I think it's a pretty easy matchup for OKC. I think OKC's probably winning in 4, regardless of who gets there. Charlotte, I think, is a little friskier with Detroit. But I think 4 is probably still the most likely. I wouldn't be shocked if Charlotte won 1, but I can't see that series going past 5. Boston and Philly is a bit interesting if Embiid ends up playing. Embiid didn't play in the play-in game. He's going to have an extra 3-4 days of rest. But I just don't think Philly's quite deep enough for Boston. Boston has managed to, perfect a lot of their depth. And their one hole is kind of size at the center position. So Embiid could give him problems there. But with him not being healthy, even if he does play, I don't think you can necessarily count on him. Philly might be able to steal a game just because Maxi's so good. But ultimately, PJ Edcombe is a rookie, and once you get to the playoffs, you can't count on rookies. So I would expect that to kind of be the same. In Charlotte's play-in game, Knipple, who's arguably been Charlotte's best player, he was like 2 for 12, and I think they had to bench him down the stretch. Which makes a lot of sense if you kind of follow basketball. The NBA season is longer than any season any of these guys play, with rare exceptions. Like Luka Doncic played, I think, 90 games at his year 18, but he was at Real Madrid, and they've made it to the finals of every competition. The college season is only about 40 games if you make it all the way to the finals of the March Madness. So it's only about half the length of the regular season of the NBA. And then you get to the playoffs where everything ramps up. And so it's very difficult for rookies to really contribute. Charlotte has 4 rookies on their team. I think 3 are in their rotation in their top 10. So even if they shrink it down, they're going to have to count on too many rookies, I think, to really make any noise. Portland, I think, is the friskiest of the play-in teams against San Antonio, just because the Spurs are also a young team. Dylan Harper's a rookie. Castle's a year 2 guy. Wemby's a year 3 guy. I don't think Wemby has been in the playoffs yet. I believe this is his first trip. So even though they were the second best team in the league, second best team in the West, really outside of Harrison Barnes, they don't have anyone proven. De'Aaron Fox has made the playoffs, I believe, only the one time during the Light the Beam season, and they lost in round 1 to the Warriors. Harrison Barnes does have a title. He has a lot of playoff resumes, and he's kind of the unspoken leader, I think, as the veteran presence on that team. But I don't know that that's going to be enough to carry them. On paper, they're the second best team. On paper, they should make the Western Finals, but because they're so young, I could see them getting upset in any round. And Portland is oddly veteran-based, based on the moves they made in the offseason, bringing in Dame Lillard, bringing in Drew Holiday. They have Jeremy Grant, Time Lord has some battles with Boston. But then you still, you're counting on a lot of guys making their first trip to the playoffs. Though they're all kind of in year 3, 4, 5 for the most part. Um, I would still pick the Spurs. I would be shocked if the Spurs did lose to Portland in the series. But I could see Portland stretching it to 6 games. I think the weirdest series of round one is the Lakers and Houston, just because both those teams kind of got bad juju right now. The Lakers' best two players are hurt. It sounds like Luka maybe will be back later in the series. It sounds like Reeves probably won't be. Houston suffered injuries earlier in the year that were like season ending, so they weren't like to their tip top guys. But they're just an oddly constructed team. Durant had his burner scandal that came out at All Star break where he was shitting on his teammates. So I don't think they're the tightest locker room and everything. So talent wise, Houston should be able to beat the Lakers. But I think that series is really open ended. Unfortunately, I think either of them are just going to get eaten up by OKC in the second round. As someone that is hoping anyone but OKC wins the title, I think the bracket is broken really well for OKC. And whoever gets out of that series, OKC is just going to probably eat up and win in 4 or 5 games anyway. I think I would pick Houston. The sucky thing about this series is it's Durant versus LeBron, so it's going to be the primetime slot every single night, even though it's probably the worst matchup of the first round in a lot of ways. But because you got two of the biggest stars going at it, probably for the last time ever, they're going to get the primetime game every single night. The last series in the West is probably the best series in round one overall. Denver taking on my team, Minnesota. Um, Minnesota's probably the most likely team to get an upset. In some ways, it doesn't even feel like an upset, but I just don't think the juju's quite there this year. Um, they on paper have everything you kind of need to make a run. Um, but they've just been more inconsistent than normal. Um, Things didn't go as planned this year. Hindsight 2020, but they obviously should have kept Nickeil Alexander-Walker and probably tried to dump Mike Conley in the offseason. They let Walker go because they're up against the aprons. Mike Conley's on the last year of his contract, but it's still $10 million. Nickeil only made 16, so hindsight 2020. Although I was leaning that way, not strongly because I knew they weren't going to do it because Mike Conley's the veteran leader of the team. But anytime you have a guard getting that old, that's that small, they just are gonna fall off a cliff at some point. I knew we were playing with fire, and it just happened to happen this year. Similar to like Chris Paul 2 years ago, Chris Paul was still kind of a fringe all-star in a lot of ways, and he's out of the league altogether. Mike Conley probably is out of the league altogether if this locker room didn't respect him so much. He has summoned it a couple times here down the stretch, but he's just at the point of his career where it's like a once a month thing, not a every game or once a week thing. Not that he's going to play in the playoffs, but I feel like that kind of set the whole season off on a bad start. They had a trade for Ayo Dosunmu. Part of the reason they let Walker leave as well is they wanted to leave rotation minutes open for their young guys, and all of them have flamed out. They had to just cut Rob Dillingham altogether, trading them for Dosunmu. Jalen Clark, I think, has been healthy most of the year, just couldn't crack the rotation. Couldn't get a shot to drop. Terrence Shannon's been hurt pretty much the whole year, but he's been very inconsistent when he does play. So they had to go out and get Dosunmu, and they had to get Kyle Anderson off the buyout market. Mike Conley technically off the buyout market as well, though he's not a real buyout guy because he's been on the team the whole year. So two of the guys you're counting on in the playoffs, even though they're like your seventh and ninth man, are buyout market trade deadline guys, which usually doesn't bode well in the playoffs because they just haven't had enough time. They've only had 60 days to get that chemistry with the team. Julius Randle's oddly kind of had his best season maybe of his career, but I feel like I trust him less than I did last year even. We're very reliant on Rudy, which is always tricky in the playoffs because teams always just have the option to go small. I don't think Denver will. It sounds like Peyton Watson is going to miss this series, which does help Minnesota. And then Ant is so good he can summon it and kind of rise to that level. Even against a player as great as Jokic, Ant can be better than him on a given night. But I think he's going to have to just be better than Jokic 4 times out of 7. And I don't think he's capable of that. And I expect my team to have a first round exit, which is going to cause a big look in the mirror in the offseason. But we'll see. I wouldn't be shocked if they upset Denver. I like our chances more against the Spurs if we happen to make it to the second round. But I don't think we're getting past OKC no matter what. So part of me is almost rooting for Denver because I think Denver has the best shot against OKC. But I would say Minnesota maybe got like a 30% chance, maybe a 25% chance against Denver. The second most interesting matchup, I think, is the other 3-6. Atlanta's arguably the hottest team in the Eastern Conference, going against the Knicks that just never seem like they can get 2 feet in front of themselves. Atlanta's biggest problem is they're relying on CJ McCollum a lot. He would replace Trae Young. They were traded pretty much straight up for each other. And he pretty much went straight into the Trae Young role. And they don't really have a number one. Jalen Johnson is their best player. But he's not quite ready to step up to be like the go-to guy at all times. So it's been McCollum. I think that's their biggest hurdle. And probably the thing holding them back from ultimately beating the Knicks. But I think they're right around the same odds as Minnesota beating Denver. They're not as good as Minnesota, but the Knicks aren't as good as Denver. So those are the 2 most interesting series. I think the two series most likely to go 7. And then you got Cleveland and Toronto. Both these teams I haven't watched nearly as much of as I would have liked this season. Toronto seems like they kind of do both ends of the ball well, but you can't really count on any of them. You know, you're getting to Brandon Ingram in the playoffs again, which is always a bit dicey, but Cleveland's a bit dicey, especially with the addition of James Harden, who's obviously a better player than Brandon Ingram, but it's just been haunted by the playoffs his whole career, basically. I saw Arturo American Numbers on Twitter. His model favors Toronto, which I thought was shocking. I haven't heard anyone else say that. That was the first time I really even considered the possibility of them beating Cleveland. But I think Cleveland kind of figured it out in the second half. I think getting James Harden helped them a lot. I think getting bailed out by the Kings and getting Keontae Ellis and Schroeder helped them a lot. So I think I would still be shocked if Toronto does ultimately upset Cleveland. Detroit is definitely rooting for it because I think Cleveland has a much better shot of beating Detroit than Toronto does. Detroit is one of those interesting teams. Cade Cunningham's flirting with being like a top 10 player, probably is. Jalen Duren took a big leap forward this year. I think they probably have the best front court duo in Duren and Beef Stew. The most imposing like center rotation. But they don't have a real number 2 scorer. I feel like they count on Tobias Harris a lot in that role still. Their trade deadline move didn't really work. I was a bit puzzled that of all the guys they could get, they ended up with Kevin Huerter. But I think they were more interested in getting the best draft asset they could, which ended up just being moving up 6 or so slots, flipping that pick with Minnesota. Herter's basically been a non-factor, which I think they needed another scorer. Karis LeVert hasn't quite worked out for them. They did find Denise Jenkins, who's really been great for them, especially with Cade out with the collapsed lung and everything. But he plays the same position as Cade, so I don't know how much you can really play them together. So that's kind of their Achilles heel in the playoffs, is I don't think they really have a number 2 guy. Duren is their second best player, but as terms of like a scoring option, he's not really that as a low post guy in the modern NBA. I don't think they will have any problem with Charlotte, but I think, taking Cleveland to 7 is kind of like their best case scenario. If Toronto does beat Cleveland, I could easily see Detroit making the Eastern Finals. Boston and the Knicks or Boston and Atlanta. I think Boston is kind of rounded into being the clear Eastern favorite. So I don't really favor anyone against Boston. Um, all their young guys just kind of panned out. It's like the opposite of Minnesota. They counted on 3, 4 young guys just like Minnesota, but they went 4 for 4 where Minnesota went 0 for 4. Um, so we'll see how they do in the playoffs. I did the whole rookie spiel about you can't really count on rookies, but I am kind of counting on them in Boston just because they have Tatum, they have Brown, they have Pritchard. Um, so they don't really need those guys. The only guy they really need is Quinta, because Vucevic probably can't handle the load, but Vuce is the veteran, so I think he'll get time. Garza's been very good for them, but giving Garza playoff minutes is a bit scary. So that's the real weakness with Boston, which will be interesting against the Knicks with Towns and Robinson, and then if Detroit manages to get there, I guess even Cleveland. Cleveland's got Allen and Mobley. Detroit's got Duran and Beef Stew, like I said. All those teams will win that matchup, but they just aren't going to have answers for Tatum and Brown. Although I guess the Knicks invested all that in the wing, so they have Anunoby and Bridges. I think Bridges is kind of disappointed this year, and they also got Josh Hart. So that'll be a really good matchup. That's probably the second round matchup I'm most looking forward to. Denver and San Antonio also would be very good. That's more exciting, I think, than Minnesota San Antonio. Though they're probably equally competitive. I just think seeing Jokic and Wemby again for 7 games potentially is really good. And I think it's hard to see anyone but the Thunder winning the finals this year, just because I think they got the breaks. So barring an injury, I think they have the easiest path, which the first overall seed is supposed to have technically, but it doesn't always break that way. Game 82, Denver rested everyone against San Antonio. Had they lost, they would have been the 4 seed. Lakers would have been the 3 seed, which would have really flipped things where Denver would have played OKC in the second round. Um, Minnesota would be easily favored against the Lakers. And then, the path is much harder for OKC, but they got lucky. Denver ended up beating San Antonio, clinching that 3 seed. And, the three best teams in the West are all on the opposite side of the bracket for OKC. So they're only going to have to play they're only going to have to play one of them. And the three are going to take each other out. And then the Eastern Conference is weaker. Eastern Conference oddly became much deeper in the middle this year than the West. The West became very top heavy. But I don't think even Boston was really on the level of the top three teams in the West. So hopefully I'm wrong, but I can't really see a path where the Thunder don't repeat as champions. You never want to root for injuries, but I hate the Thunder, so I kind of am, because that's the only way I see them losing. All right, that's 30 minutes. I think we're going to call that, guys. For April, I'm behind on April, but we're only about halfway in the month, so I got time to catch up. I might try to do some more show reviews. I had planned to review the Defy Dragon Gate show, but life got in the way of that, so we're not going to have that. Maybe I'll do some WrestleMania shows. Nothing really excited me or stuck out to me. Nothing's made like my best of matches list so far. So we'll see what happens. I'll probably do a Golden Coliseum video, whether it's a preview. Guts Dozier already did a preview, so I'll probably just do a review. Social Suplex's issue just came out today, so if you want to read my thoughts on Dragon Gate's February, as well as the news. I talked in my last video or 2 videos ago about the Dia situation a little bit, but I have a written review of that as well as all the Dragon Gate shows from February and the opening in March, including the shows that had the 2 matches in my top 10 today. So please check that out. Please read the rest of the newsletter. I think everyone does a great work, and we have basically every company in the world covered. It's a very massive newsletter. It's a huge undertaking for everyone. My Dragon Gate section is probably the most I've written for anything in like 15 years. And I think I write the least out of everyone in the newsletter. So everyone puts a lot of hard work into it. If you've ever been interested in other companies, that was kind of my motivation of this YouTube channel. But I think that newsletter covers everything You get recommended matches for every company in the world, along with reviews and whatnot, and you get the stories on the front page as well. And it's free, so there's no barrier to entry. Check it out. I can tag it in this description as well. But now I'm just rambling. So have a good one, guys. Enjoy WrestleMania weekend.